Welcome back to another episode of Expats in Ukraine with your host, me, Corey. Today, my guest, he's from Switzerland. He's a humanitarian volunteer. He works with the organization Nordog Animal Rescue. His name is Noel Tock. What's up, Noel?
Hey, how's it going, Corey?
Good, man. It's nice to finally meet you.
Likewise. It's been too long.
Yeah, we're like best friends on Instagram, man.
We
We're
really
always
are.
like chatting with each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
We've even done a live together.
Yeah, we've done the live together. I connected you with the other friend about how did that docuseries go, by the way? Like that episode.
I don't know.
I mean, but like when they came over to film you.
Oh, it was amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah, we had
Okay,
a good
right
time.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he sent me some photos after. Nick sent me some photos.
Yeah, we had a good time.
Yeah, nice, man. So, as I talked to you before, you probably know how, these episodes start.
Yep.
Okay, right on. So, yeah, icebreaker, just so you guys at home can get to know Noel just a bit better if you don't know him already. So it's this or that.
Okay.
First one, rosti or mlinci?
Oh.
You know mlinci, right?
Yes,
Okay.
I will have to go with rosti.
Rosti. So what's a rosti for the people that don't
Rosti
know?
is like it's like a shredded potato, that's like then grilled on a frying pan,
Okay.
kind of like layered together.
So it's like a pancake, but a potato pancake, right?
of shredded potato.
Okay, right on. So
Yeah.
it's similar to, have you tried daruni?
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I think it's similar.
Yeah, okay, I guess it's like similar.
They
'Cause I
have
remember-
that pizzata or whatever, right?
Yeah, I think they have pizzata hata. Exactly.
yeah.
Wow, you're very Ukrainian, man. You know, pizzata hata. Okay, next. Alps or Carpathians?
I have not been to the Carpathians. Now, I've made a crucial mistake. And this is when I was on Instagram one day, I saw this picture of at the time it was a hot tub. Now I know it's a banya. And I was like, wow, that looks really nice. Because I was in Kharkiv and I was like, I could use a break.
Yeah.
And I pressed it. And so I went through on Yad. And ever since then, I only get ads for the Carpathians.
Well, it's beautiful.
So
mountains.
I just get, every time I just have this envy and I'm like, I really have to go. So it's on the list. So I'd say the Carpathians for now.
Carpathians,
because I haven't been yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you should go. I believe the highest point is like Hoverla. Yeah, it's like the
Yeah.
highest point in the Carpathians. So
Yeah.
definitely check it out, man.
I will.
Most people would probably say Alps, but I like your style, man. Yeah, I mean, you're 1 for 2, I guess, on the Ukrainization. Okay, next is Rivella or Kvass?
Kvass.
Kvass. What is
Yeah.
Rivella?
So Rivella, it's this weird drink. I don't even know how we make it, to be honest. I definitely drank it growing up. But here I have my kvass, which I get behind a gas station in Slovyansk.
Oh.
And it's just a bit less sweet than other ones.
It comes in like a bottle, or is it just like this big?
Yeah. No, so it's in a reused water bottle. It's in a fridge at the back there, and in winter it's just sitting in the snow in the back.
Oh wow, man!
So you can get it all year round, and it's I mean it's a bit of a, it's almost like a tactical nuke, when you leave it in the fridge overnight,
Yeah.
and then you try to open it, and but definitely kvass.
No, I have a funny story about Kvass. So I used to live with near Pecherska, and I was living with my flatmate who's from Brazil.
Yeah.
And one day I come home, it was like Friday, and he's like still working, but he has like an hour of work left. He's like, Corey, I want to party, so like let's party. I bought some alcohol. It's in the fridge. And I'm like, okay. And I open the fridge. I'm like, where's the alcohol? He's like, it's right there. Those big bottles.
Oh, no.
And I look at it. I'm like, dude, you bought 2 bottles of Kvass. He's like, what's that? It's alcohol, right?
Oh, okay.
And I was like, dude, it's not alcohol, man. He was like, damn. He's like,
Well, it is alcoholic.
no, but it does. It has very little, if anything.
Right. Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
fermented, sure, but
Right,
it's
right.
you don't get drunk off kvass, man.
No, I mean, you could try.
Yeah, you can try.
I
Sure.
don't want to try.
Exactly, but I thought it was like hilarious,
Yeah,
man.
yeah,
'Cause, he was a guy that didn't really assimilate too well. He didn't really know how to read Cyrillic. Yeah.
Oh, okay, fair
Yeah.
play.
But okay, last question: Zurich or Kharkiv?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I'll go with both, and I'll
Both.
explain why.
Go.
Zurich is my base, and if you've ever played basketball or any kind of sport, when you get the ball, you get the puck or whatever it is, you're in a position to pivot into other things, and Zurich is that for me. I have my team there. I have my best friends, anybody who's just like that. Those long-term friendships, and without that base and foundation, I wouldn't be able to pivot around and go do the things I do. I've been nomadic for over 10 years. And without having that solid base to always come back to, I wouldn't be able to come to places like this.
Yeah.
At the same time, Kharkiv has been just incredibly welcoming and, just generous and just an incredible city to be in.
So you grew up in Zurich, right?
Half. So I spent part of my childhood in Cameroon.
Cameroon.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Do you know where that is?
It's in Africa.
Would you be able to play that game where you point it on the map?
Oh, don't embarrass me, man. This is my podcast. Okay?
Yeah, fair play. So it's central West Africa. So just in that, where that dent is. And that's where Cameroon is. Okay. And so I grew up there with French, and then came German and English once I came back to Switzerland.
So how many languages do you speak then?
Three.
So
and
English,
then HTML,
German, French?
JavaScript. And,
oh, okay, nerd.
No, totally. I'm totally a nerd.
Nerd alert, guys.
yeah, totally.
But okay, so I actually used to date a girl from Switzerland, and she was from Zurich area.
Yeah.
You know, Rapperswil?
Yep, I do.
Yeah, okay. She was from there.
Okay.
So it's a beautiful area. They have like this Rapperswil Lake. I remember swimming in it when I was there.
So that's actually part of the canton of St. Gallen.
I have no idea what that is, but
so
okay.
It's not part of our oblast, the Zurich oblast.
Okay, right. Different oblast. Okay.
Yeah,
now you're speaking my language.
No. That's why it didn't work out.
Yeah, exactly, man.
She wasn't from Zurich.
Exactly. That must be it, man. That must be it. But because I actually, it was like years ago, and I flew from Lviv to Zurich, you know, nonstop flights.
Yeah.
And when I got there, I was spending like, I don't know, maybe $1 for beer or like, you know, $2 for food, like in the center of Lviv. And I go there and I get like, I hang out with her and we're getting like a mojito at a bar. And it's like 15, 16 Swiss francs at the time.
It's even more now.
Yeah. I'm like, what the heck? And I just spent like, I don't know, $1, $2 for a cocktail back in like Lviv, like right in the center. Now I'm spending 15, 16. Oh man, it was like, I want to go back to Ukraine. Take me home. Yeah. But, anyway, so tell me, what were you doing in Switzerland before you came to Ukraine? We'll get to Ukraine in a second. I just want to know, like, some more background.
So I haven't spent a lot of time in Switzerland over the last years, like the last 10 years. I've been majority out of the country because I've been nomadic. I have my own digital company with my two friends. We have about 70 employees worldwide, and we build some of the largest websites for large companies. Think like Disney, Red Bull, Sony PlayStation, things like that. And that allows me to work remotely and to travel the world and to gain a lot more of a global perspective and it's an incredibly small world physically. This little blue planet we're on. We just make it very large through our fears, through borders, and through other such things. So sometimes it's just taking that leap and going to another country.
Yeah. So you would say you weren't spending most of your time in Switzerland before Ukraine. Which country, or was it just everywhere?
My favorites are South Africa, Southeast Asia.
Okay.
Love Japan. Like that, the whole kind of southern hemisphere up to Australia too, and those whole places. Yeah,
I was in Southeast Asia. Is in Malaysia, Thailand, and then Myanmar at the time. It was like years ago. It's beautiful there, like Thailand and Malaysia, very beautiful. Yeah, spent some time like on Koh Tao Island. Yeah, but very beautiful. But anyways, yeah. So I know you weren't spending a lot of time in Switzerland before you came to Ukraine. But I want to talk a bit about what is Switzerland's stance on Ukraine. I know they're not as helpful as they should be, but you probably have like maybe deeper insights. I don't know. We're pro-Ukraine. We're just not on the weapons side of things. So I'd say from a civilian point of view, you know, like the population is very much behind Ukraine. There's no doubt about that. I've never run into anybody back home that's not supported, you know, what I do, what the country is going through, and, you know, just the kind of larger mission. But the weapons aspect is the only kind of very tough one. Because from a humanitarian perspective, the Swiss government does put in quite a lot of money and work on a number of projects out here. Okay. So before you came to Ukraine in 2022, right?
23. Beginning of 23.
Okay. So before you came in 23, what did you know about Ukraine?
Almost nothing.
Almost nothing. Okay. Like did they teach you about it in school, or was it just all Soviet Union, Eastern Europe?
I'm sure I learned it the same way I learned other countries. You know, it's this is broadly where it is. This is the capital. And yeah, that's about it. Okay. Then
from knowing nothing about Ukraine, and it's like 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine. So what inspired you to actually decide to come to Ukraine and, you know, help and be here in the country?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd say there's two sides to a coin. The one is my friend Frederick, which created Nordog. basically got in a car and drove down here and just started helping dogs. And I was helping remotely, like during 22, pending a hip surgery and all that kind of good stuff. And then that got canceled. So in 23, I just said, I'll just come over, and I think that's the kind of, just go find out, right? Like if you're wondering about something, don't think too much about it. Just go do that thing, right? When you're sitting outside Ukraine, people say, don't go to Ukraine, it's dangerous. And then once you're in Kyiv, they say, don't go to Kharkiv, it's dangerous. And then once you're in Kharkiv, I mean, everybody's kind of used to the stuff a bit more. So, but they'll still say like, hey, Kupiansk or Volchansk or Slovyansk or whatever, or Lipsy, it's dangerous, So I think you just have to find out for yourself. But the other side of the coin is I've been working with animal or humane societies since 2007, 2006. And yeah, I think it's just been a natural path in that regard. I'd also made myself, a sort of commitment when I was younger. I was 27, and I told myself by the time I'm 30, I'll have my own business, and by the time I'm 40, I'll try to focus on NGOs quite a lot, or give a large part of my time to that. And so all these different streams compounded together very nicely into a situation like this where I feel I can be useful.
Yeah. That's nice. So you came in 2023. Which month?
March.
March. What were your first impressions of Ukraine? It's beautiful in spring, by the way.
It was beautiful. It was still cold actually at the time. It was still chilly. It took another 3 weeks before it warmed up. It was like that. Yeah.
What were your first impressions? And were you in Kyiv, or which city were you in?
No. So we. As soon as my hip surgery was postponed, which was like a couple weeks, like 2 weeks before, I then spoke to Fred, got on next plane to Warsaw because he was going to drive down anyway from Norway. He had just been out, so he's coming back in, and yeah, he just picked me up in Krakow, and we drove over, and then spent a day close to Lviv, and then another day in Kyiv just to sleep. And then we're in Kharkiv.
Wow, right away, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never even been to Kharkiv. Like even before the war, I would love to go. I heard it's such a great city. Unfortunately, it's a lot of it is destroyed, right? And there's constant air alarm. Not a lot, but there's like parts that are destroyed. A lot of air alarms, right?
There's a lot of alarms. Yeah, I mean, I'd say like from the first day I was there, it was either the first or the second day. Maybe it was the second day. There was already a few S-300s that flew in and smashed into buildings and stuff, and then that's your kind of like wake up call. Okay, this is what it is now, and yeah, a lot of air raids, but yeah, the city has a lot of destroyed parts, obviously, especially if you go to the more northern parts. But overall as a city, they really take care of it. They try to rebuild, board up. If something gets if there's a rocket or a bomb that lands in the middle of the road, they'll rebuild it, replant the plants that were there and everything. Take a lot of pride in keeping the city very aesthetic and kind of giving it a feeling of normal. Yeah.
Well, coming from like Europe to Ukraine and straight to Kharkiv, weren't you scared? You said there was like S-300s, right? A couple, like one of your first days. Doesn't this scare you?
I think it gave me an initial shock, just to kind of like the explosion, right? And yeah, from then on, I feel like I was just used to it.
No.
Yeah.
It's such a sad thing, whereas, a lot of people get used to this. Like this is their new reality.
Absolutely.
And it's so sad. Like this is it's like a really bad reality, but this is it. And people just adjust. It's crazy how adaptable humans can be.
Yeah, it's crazy how adaptable they are and how strong they can be. And I feel like a lot of people who maybe didn't think they had that in them, realize they actually do have that power. Yeah. And that's a beautiful thing to also realize.
So let's talk about Nordog now. So you're in Kharkiv, you're with Fred. Fred founded Nordog, right?
Yeah.
So he already founded Nordog, and he asked you to join him, or you asked to join him?
No, he called me up and asked me to join him.
Okay.
But yeah,
Can you explain like the main idea behind Nordog?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'll dive right in. So Nordog Animal Rescue we evacuate animals from the front lines and also provide food for the occupied areas. So we turned a dog and cat food factory back on in Kharkiv. So it's the only one I think that exists in the city that's actually producing this kind of food. And then depending on donations, we adjust and produce as much as we can for the occupied territories or frontline border towns. But yeah, that is our primary goal. And with the evacuations, what we do is we evacuate the animals, bring them back to our shelter, sterilize, vaccinate, chip, go through all those.
The shelter's in Kharkiv, by the way.
South Kharkiv, yeah.
Okay.
And at the same time, our sales team goes online, on Facebook and different places to then advertise the dogs that we evacuated, and then we find new families for them in Western Ukraine predominantly. And as soon as we have 10 dogs ready for adoption, we put them in a van and deliver them ourselves wherever it is in the country, as in wherever. So basically a bit like Amazon Prime.
Wow, with dogs though.
Yeah.
But okay, question. So do you reunite dogs with owners as well? Because you're talking about adoption right now, but you also reunite, dogs with their owners because they had to leave in a rush, right? In some areas.
Yeah. So just a bit more context in terms of the charity before diving into that. So the leadership team is Fred and myself as the only two foreigners, and we're really more on the marketing side. And then we have Pavel and Sveta, which are our Ukrainian counterparts on the leadership team, which are really just two amazing people who have won plenty of awards beforehand in Ukraine, either for show dogs, hunting with dogs, being cynologists. So really just trained in this profession. So we wouldn't be able to do it without them. And then the extended team, which is another 10 or so people. So it's a decently sized charity. And yeah, that's essentially how it is. Now, the reunification of dogs, it's a challenging one because will you either have animals which have been in a frontline town or city for some time now.
Can you give an example of what city maybe you've evacuated from that's frontline?
So a good example of a town or a city now which has just been at it for a while is Kupiansk. And yeah, it's picking up again lately or just kind of shifting. But a lot of the animals will pick up there have been abandoned for some time now, either because the family abandoned to Russia at the beginning, or left in a hurry at the beginning of the war, and then the neighbors took care of the dog for some time, but now the neighbors want to leave. So there's a whole cascade of things. Yeah. The other situation we have is when the army, the military moves into a house that's been abandoned. There's a dog there. They take care of the dog. They essentially adopt the dog, but then they have to rotate, and that's family now. So either they'd like for that dog to have a new home because they don't want to bring the dog to a front line.
Of course,
right? So it was fine being in that situation because they were there, but now that they're rotating into potentially a more dangerous position, that doesn't make sense, and they don't want that for their animal. So in those situations, like we actually just had that from, Kupiansk this last week.
Last week?
Yeah,
you were there.
Yeah,
this evac. Huh?
Yeah, we did. We got 2 shepherds from a military unit in Kupiansk. And what's happening with these 2 dogs is we'll bring them back, we'll vaccinate them, not sterilize, and ship them, and then bring them to the military's families. So essentially, they've adopted the dog or the dogs into two different families. So those dogs, will go to the individual families. So in this case, the wives and the children to take care of the dog.
Okay, and I was talking to you during my Instagram live, and I asked you about different animals that you've evacuated, and what are the most unique or strange ones. So you do more than dogs, right? You evacuate more than dogs.
Not really. Sometimes we'll pick up cats if it's part of the program.
Maybe start an organization, Nor Cats.
Nor all. Yeah. No, we've picked up a bit of everything, I guess, over the years, it feels like years, but yeah.
In dog years, it's years.
Yeah, that's good catch. But we essentially we focus on large dogs, so like challenging dogs, I'd say, or the ones which are in challenging positions. So for example, we've been in Hatish, which is north of Volchansk. So there's no military in that zone. It's like a no-go zone. And the artillery actually goes overhead, right? Like it goes over into Volchansk. It's just no man's land because you're 2 kilometers from the Russian border there. And we picked up 2 completely abandoned alibis that were just down to their ribs, And now Hatish is completely under Russian control. So those dogs would have not survived, and now they're in happy homes, So these things work out quite well. But in terms of and that's a challenging animal, an alibi. It's a 60, 70, 80 kilo dog. And when it hasn't been fed in a long time, it's a lot smaller, but it still can be quite strong. But yeah, for other animals, we'll often coordinate with Animal Rescue Kharkiv, ARC, which is probably like the largest animal organization in Kharkiv. And, either on a trip back, if like the guinea pigs I got from Kupiansk or whatever, we'll deliver them at ARC because that's not our specialty. Yeah. But they take all animals, for instance. But then, we'll have a bit of a relationship in terms of who takes large animals, who takes small animals.
Yeah. Okay. And you're going to these areas. You said this area now is occupied by Russia, right? So that you evacuate
Hatish,
yeah. You're evacuating animals and you're risking your life. Is this normal? Because you could die.
This is where I've come full circle recently, because part of the reason I told myself back then at 27, I'll wait till I'm 40 to do the NGO stuff, is because I'll have business experience, right? Because when I worked with animal charities earlier on, I realized it's just full of crazy animal people. So they have an absolute passion, and they will go to the end of the world to save animals. And, I realized, okay, they're a bit crazy because they don't know how to do fundraising. They don't know how to put a structure around these things. Yeah. They're just so passionate about like animal rights. And I think that's amazing, right? Because you have that drive. You need that, right? Like in any organization, you need that. That's where it starts. But the kind of scaling and the sort of structure and how do you like have consistent fundraising and all these kind of things. And I thought, I'd be the one that would kind of bring that in. And then you realize, after 8 cabs, when you're out in this area and you had the New York Times with you, but they left halfway through and you're still out there like getting some more animals, that you're actually the crazy one. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know how to explain it. I think some of it is also, this is an opportunity, to do good in Ukraine. And when you're not sure where to start or whatever that may be in terms of like the next step, just starting somewhere is important. And, this has given me invaluable experience in terms of learning what happens at the front, how ineffective large organizations are and how effective small Ukrainian frontline charities are. Yeah. But at the same time, they don't have the publicity towards the West. And, understanding these problems so that I can try to work towards these problems in the future. So you need to kind of have that experience on the ground in order to, really go and do something larger for the next year or the year after.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me about a typical, so how do you go from, finding out that this animal needs to be rescued to actually going? What is the process here?
Oh, well, I'm gonna get some flack for this because we don't have like mission planning maps and all these kind of things where
you just get a call and you just go.
No, it's not that bad.
Let's go.
But I'd say we've seen some. What I like to say by that is some of the large like human evacuation teams have become very professionalized in Ukraine, and that's great. But I feel like we're running with maybe a smaller set of resources at times, and it forces us to be quite pragmatic. And what I mean by that is we have Sveta that collects a lot of these incoming requests in terms of, hey, we need evacuation here, evacuation there, and we have a pretty good network of coordinators, let's say, in these different towns, because they're also the ones who distribute our feed, and then they manage the lists in terms of who gets the food, because we have strict rules around food distribution, so that it's really prioritized according to need and urgency as opposed to first come, first serve. But that also allows us to be able to triage the incoming requests for evacuations of animals. And to put it lightly, I guess or to put it simply, sorry, we have a shelter. It has a maximum amount of space. When that is maxed out, we can't go on any more evacuations unless that evacuation is to retrieve the animal and then deliver it to the person that actually owns the animal or will take care of it at a gas station in Kharkiv or whatever. But otherwise, we receive the request. We figure out what's the address. Do we need any permits to go there? Do we need any contacts? Do we need to call anybody? Do we need to let anybody know? And usually for something like Kupiansk, it's that's become a bit harder now. But otherwise, like it's just been drive in, get the animal, right?
Yeah.
And something like Volchansk in May, where the new Russian offensive popped off on May 10th, and then on May 11th, we're in the middle of Volchansk on the other side of the river, and it's quite loud, and you don't really have a full idea of what's going on. You're a lot more coordinated with local police, in this case Volchansk police, and then they're in coordination with the military. You're also coordinating with the overall sort of evacuation coordinator for the different charities. So you're all kind of working together at that point, and that's a bit more of a larger mission because the area is so dynamic.
Okay, and what areas have you evacuated dogs from? Because you said Kupiansk. Yeah, you're probably all over, right? Yeah.
I mean, the whole. I mean, you can just go through all the towns all the way down.
Really? So you've done it all, like mostly like in the Kharkiv area, or just like in the south?
We've mostly been in the Kharkiv area. You know, so everything from Lipsy, Kozachalapan over to Volchansk, Bielikoladets, then you're starting to move over towards Kupiansk, you're coming down to Kramatorsk, Sloviansk, and then you do the whole like pass around till Chasiv Yar, and then
Chasiv Yar. Oh.
Yeah, we've been past Chasiv Yar, so in between like Chasiv Yar and Bakhmut, and like that was.
How do these towns look?
That's destroyed.
Destroyed.
I mean, Chasiv Yar looked relatively okay, but I'm saying like once you go past Chasiv Yar towards Bakhmut, it's very sad. Like I was extremely saddened with the whole Volchansk situation because we had distributed food and gotten to know a lot of the people in Volchansk over the last year. And the crazy thing I didn't even realize was that Volchansk was already quite destroyed at that point. And then to see it now in May, it's heartbreaking. Yeah. Like you kind of have this vision of something where life lives and prevails and people are nice and everybody's trying to make it, given circumstances. And then all of a sudden that's all robbed away. It's it's crazy.
It's really sad to see. I've been looking at kind of like reports from these areas, and I see kind of reporters, and they show the city, and it's just like before and afters. I don't know. It's really sad to see. But you go to these cities. Do you have any close calls? I know you talked about when you first went to Kharkiv, those S300s, right?
Yeah.
Like flying above you. Have you ever had any close calls when you go to these cities to do evacuations?
Yeah, so Volchansk was super hot. I mean, I think like the reason we didn't go on our last kind of run into the city was because small arms fire had already broken out in the city. But yeah, there was grads, there was artillery, there was everything just pouring in throughout the city, which was quite bad. When we were like outside Chasiv Yar, between Chasiv Yar and Bakhmut, like there's artillery coming in, you're hearing the whistling. When I took the New York Times out to Bielikoladets, I thought that was going to be a safe trip. Turns out there was 8 cabs in that time, and a few of those were within 400 meters. And
when you say cab, you mean
glide bombs?
Glide bombs. Oh, whoa.
Yeah, okay. The 500 kilos. So when I mean 8, I mean 4 pairs. So because they're always slamming twos. Yeah. And I remember the first one. We really thought it was a jet coming in, because it's at that. Because you don't really expect to have a cab out by these kind of like border towns that like there's almost nobody there. Yeah. And because you hear them in Kharkiv quite a lot. So we initially thought it was a jet, and it wouldn't be our jet. So we're like, hey, what's going on? And then it dawns on you, 2 seconds later, that's not a jet. It's like it's coming right on you. And it blew up on that position we had before. And I don't think there's any kind of correlation between where we were and where that glide bomb was. But yeah, it was quite close. And then there was even debris that hit the van and everything. So, like these are quite forceful explosions, I'd say. And then it happened again and again. It's just quite intense.
Yeah, and so your team that you do these evacs with, it's typically just you and two other people, or one other person, I imagine.
No, it depends. Depends a bit. So something like Volchansk, we'll all go out. We'll bring the vans with. We'll keep the vans at the staging area, the rally point, and that's where the media does their interviews. That's where World Central Kitchen provides amazing food. Very happy for their warm snacks, and we'll be able to repackage and just keep filling up the van there. But then we'll take like an SUV into like a pickup truck into these like more spicy kind of situations.
Yeah. Okay. And say if somebody else wants to, be like Noel and do what you do, what would you recommend to them to do? How do they start? Not doing it specifically like evac, or animal evac, but say they want to volunteer in some capacity similar to kind of what you're doing.
I think it's just a matter of coming. It's really as simple as that. Like, there's no questions at the border. You're on a tourist visa. You come in. I think there's plenty of organizations that need help. We've seen that funding has dried up in a large way. A lot of the best charities are funded by Ukrainians. So it's a lot of tired Ukrainians who are not getting much sleep and are pouring their heart into their charities, who are very close to the problem, so they best understand the problem and can best respond to it and best provide the support, not getting enough funds because they don't have time for marketing. They don't know how to market to the West. They may not speak English. They're relying solely on monobank jars. What's a monobank jar if you're sitting in Switzerland or the US or wherever?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of help that's needed there. So if you're a foreigner, you can absolutely already begin remotely to help these charities, and then come in at a later stage if you wish to just travel in because you now work with a charity. So I think there is a progression path there, and some of it is just overcoming your own sort of fears around this stuff. When I had been in Kharkiv for, I think like it was the third or fourth day, Fred was like, "Hey, we have a crazy mission. We're going to outside between Chasiv Yar and Bakhmut. Are you in?" And sure, I could come up with an excuse of like, "Oh, I've got like, work calls or something. I'll come on the next one or something, right?" But it's moments like this you just have to say yes, right? One, because your friend's asking you, and two, because you're not going to find out otherwise.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true, man. So I know you've probably met like many interesting people because you said you worked with like media over there. You probably met some other volunteers. Is there somebody that you met that you were just very inspired by?
I'd say it's really Pavel and Sveta on my team.
Oh, okay.
Because I feel like when you're a content creator, well, I mean, as that's a side of you, let's say, and to do that, you have to experiment a lot, and you have to go through a lot of trials and tribulations, try a lot of different formats, and do lots of different things. And Pavel and Sveta on my side, have done lots of dog things, right? Like Pavel has trained 7 of the Ukrainian champion dogs for hunting. Sveta has trained countless dogs that have won in like show dog competitions and all that. She's also trained search and rescue dogs. So they've gone through all these things, and then all of a sudden war comes around, and it puts you under an immense amount of pressure. But somehow people like this start creating their best work. And it's almost like they're painting their masterpiece, because they're compounding all their experience, all their knowledge, their networks, their reputation, and everything into this single act of not doing just good, but doing great. And I feel like I see a lot of Ukrainians doing that, where it's just all their experience coming together to just give their absolute best. And it's that compounding effect that's extremely inspiring to see.
Oh, it's well said, man. I'm getting like goosebumps, man. Like, yeah, no, it's really well said. But it's true, like the war, it brings out the best in people. It also brings out like the worst in people as well. But I noticed how like strong and, brave and inspiring Ukrainians are. And I really, really utmost respect, the Ukrainians that are involved in helping the army or just volunteering. I really respect them because they're I know they're donating a lot of their time, you know, devoting a lot of their time, donating a lot of their money. And basically this is their life now. And they're fine with this because they feel like this is their masterpiece. Like you said,
Yeah.
they're doing it for like the greater good, which is, you know, of Ukraine, democracy. I don't know, man.
I think one of the hardest things, you know, with such a masterpiece is that you're not going to realize you're painting your masterpiece. Someone else is from the outside in is going to see that. So, you know, a Pavla and a Sveta are working tirelessly day and night, and they're just in the trenches. I mean, no pun intended, but maybe it is intended. Like they're in the trenches of this in terms of their work, redefining, you know, or even just defining what is, you know, frontline animal rescue, because I don't think we've needed that for, I don't know how many years in a country that has like that many animals, right? So yeah, it's incredibly inspiring to see. And I'm, you know, part of the reason that you stay, or you come from a place of maybe your push factors, and then you stay because of the pull factors, because you're just so amazed and inspired by the people you work with.
Okay, so you keep up with the current events, obviously, right? Because you need to in order to do your job, because you have to go to certain areas, so you have to kind of understand what's going on in that area, I can imagine. So what do you make of the current situation right now? I know there's like this Kursk incursion that's like all over the news these days, and I guess, you know, the Russians are gaining ground in the east as well, near New York, I guess, and Pokrovsk. What do you think?
That's not my world. I'll be very honest. Like I'm not a military expert, a strategy expert. I mean, I think my expertise goes as far as playing Counter-Strike, you know, like
a lot of people love Counter-Strike here, man.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's really the extent of it, you know, like it's anybody can, like it, you know, like if I say anything up here, you know, there's good lighting, it's a good quality production. It may actually seem like there's weight to my words, and I don't want to like present anything like that. I think what I would say is that I'm amazed by just what is happening in Kursk. You know, from someone who's a bystander, not in the military, and, you know, is part of it, you know, in terms of the kind of the war ecosystem. I'm not sure where I'm going. Like the war like this ecosystem, what I'm talking about is you have the front line of military, you have everybody who's, you know, risking the ultimate in terms of just their life, to protect humanity. In one of its kind of darker spots, I'd say. And then as soon as you fall behind that, you have all the frontline charities, and, you know, behind that you have all the families which don't have their partner at home, so they have to do the work of two partners all of a sudden. So everybody's carrying a burden, and this whole ecosystem has to function like a, you know, like an aquarium or something like that, where it all kind of works together flawlessly and is able to grow and sprawl. So I think, you know, just from being part of the ecosystem in that regard, I think it's great from a morale perspective to see, you know, what the Ukrainian military and the armed forces are doing there.
No, I think it's excellent from a morale perspective, man. They actually, you know, whenever these trolls message me or like comment on my posts, like on Instagram or something like this, I always say, like, you go to invade Ukraine and now you're getting invaded back. You know, how successful do you think you guys are doing right now?
I don't watch, I don't watch many things, but the one, like, there's a couple of things I do like the sort of non-analytical, just asking random Russians on the street like the same question over and over again to like different Russians. And I find that very insightful in terms of, you know, what is even happening in terms of like thoughts and everything on the other side. And it gives me a very good perspective. But yeah, otherwise I, you know, like we'll read the reports, you know, the situation reports or like the sit reps or whatever for, you know, a given place we're going to, you know, the morning of or the day before. We'll make the phone calls and all that kind of stuff. But beyond that, I try to stay out of it because honestly, it's just not healthy, I think, for me to get looped into that spiral of information when the only thing that's going to move the needle forward is if I take action and I go do something. You know, I go evacuate an animal. I go, you know, try to create a piece of content or whatever that is like edutainment and tries to bring in Westerners to, you know, have more empathy with the whole situation, and then donate or, you know, be part of the cause, right? I feel like it's like the information, it's like a disinformation war where nobody's going to win, you know? So I think it's either, you know, create great content, take great action, try to move the needle forward in your own like small kind of space. You know, that old saying, think globally, act locally or whatever. Like I remember hearing that as a kid and I was like, wow, that's really, you know, silly. You know, as someone that was already like somewhat cynical. And now I'm like, no, that is how these things move forward. Most of humanity wants a better place to live in. 99% of the content on the web is created by 1% people. It's not, it doesn't represent the world as a whole. Yeah. So in that regard, I think humanity does want to do better. And I think a lot of people do better on a local basis. I think, you know, a lot of people either, you know, they raise great families, they just help in their own little community, wherever that may be, from Nepal to Cambodia to Congo, wherever it may be, you know, like people are all doing their part. But yeah, I think getting sucked into that larger social news cycle is just, it's a time sink if that's not what your industry is.
Well, it's a time sink. I agree. And it's also very traumatizing, man. Like all the news that comes out and everything is just, you know, there's a video for everything. You know, you see like a news article about this guy dying and then all of a sudden you see pictures or a video of like the aftermath. Yeah. And it's like so traumatizing. Before you just read it in text and now you can see everything that is happening. And it's really sad. Sometimes I feel like my mental health is like so low that I'm just numb to all of this. I see videos and I feel like it's important to show this, to show the world what is going on, because you can't live in this bubble of everything's okay. That's, you have to kind of see it just to kind of feel the empathy for the people that are going through it. But I just feel like for me, it's like bad for my mental health and I need to stay updated because it's, you know, for my work, I need to know what's going on in order to give, I guess, because I create, you know, content like you said. So I need to give people an understanding of what is going on. But it's traumatizing, man. And there's so much of this traumatizing content like on the internet. Like so many drone drop videos I've seen, like after like that attack in Kramatorsk, like on the railway station. Sick, man. That's sick. Only animals would be able to do that. And I've seen the photos, and there was an attack in Odessa when I was there. They hit the
one recently.
It wasn't recently. It's probably about several months back, like 4 months ago. And they attacked the Naberezhny. So it's like this kind of area near like the sea. It's like walking.
Wasn't that the cluster munitions like 3 months ago?
Yeah, it was like 3 or 4 months ago. Yeah, exactly. And they so the Kivlov castle, I guess, got destroyed as well or burned.
I mean, the pictures are heartbreaking.
Yeah. And I was there the next day, man. I saw the pictures, and I was there the next day, and I was lining up, you know, the pictures of where the area is, and the blood is still on the floor, and you see like these huge holes in like the concrete on the floor, you know, from the cluster munition kind of cubes. Yeah. It's sick, bro. These people are, I don't know, man. And it's so traumatizing. And I feel like I'm just so numb to it these days because my mental health is like really low. I don't know.
Fight.
Yeah, man, it's
fight with content, fight with actions, fight with words, whatever it is, you know.
Yeah, there's been like some times where I'm thinking like, should I go fight? But I talked to a lot of my military friends, and they, so Corey, like, do you not shoot a gun? I'm like, not really. No, you're gonna kill yourself, bro. You're gonna kill yourself. You're gonna get us killed. Just do what you're doing. It's fine. We respect that. But yeah,
I think what's interesting about what you say is that in this kind of media space, we've seen, like, Ukraine's been the underdog in a sort of David versus Goliath kind of sense in terms of beginning the war, military sizes, and just the kind of world stage and all that. And despite that, it's, you know, it's proved itself to, you know, to fight back at that level, you know, be it through memes, essentially, you know, like that's probably like and I don't mean memes always just from a pure, like, you know, picture, silly picture kind of format, but just the idea of a symbol, you know. So, you know, there's the whole Be Brave Like Ukraine, there's the blue and yellow, which is very powerful now. There's a lot of memes around that have helped Ukraine's mission scale, because if a soldier can shoot a certain amount of shots, but can't necessarily scale that. And sure, militaries do scale and get better weapons and do all these kind of things. And it's always an arms race, but the sort of scaling of public perception and media through memes, essentially, and newer ways of content has been incredibly powerful. I mean, I think at the beginning of the war, I remember, I think Ukraine's from the government, like that one actual meme posted that was something like living next to this country is a headache or whatever. I forget what the exact format was, but it was an amazing thing. And it's so viral, right? And we've seen news organizations, or let's say media companies, organizations like St. Javelin and other groups.
I was about to mention that St. Javelin is a really good one.
Extremely well in this kind of scaling of humanity and goodness and spreading the message. So I think there's doing the deed, and then there's like amplifying the deed, and there's the humanity of Ukraine, and then amplifying that, and I think there's a lot of work that can still be done in that regard.
Yeah, the Ukrainian Institute, they reached out to me recently on Instagram, and I made like a video about it. So basically, they gave me a box. I met with one of their, I guess, social media coordinators in Kyiv, like near Kontraktova Plosha, and met her, super nice girl, and she gave me like this gift box and thank you for supporting Ukraine. Yep. And so I was okay, I'll open it, make a video about it, and it was like super sweet, man. Like, so basically their whole goal was trying to keep Ukraine in the news cycle, and they want to thank foreign content creators that are keeping Ukraine, in the news, or just like on social media, just in people's minds. And so I open it up, and it's like this like little makeshift newsstand, handmade, and then they have like little newspapers, and it's like quotes from my social media, how I was saying that I just want people to experience.
It's like a hyper personalized gift.
Exactly. And
that's amazing.
It's great. And then when you open it up, it has like, comments people left on my posts,
that's nice.
Like, thanks for supporting Ukraine. And it was, I don't know, made me feel like so happy. And
that's where the edge is, I think, in Ukrainian media or Ukrainian new media is this ability to be the underdog. And I think it's so true, but there's a subreddit called the right can't meme. And,
I know that subreddit.
So humanity always kind of prevails when it comes to these newer media. Like back then it used to be caricatures, and it's very hard to do caricatures of something that's like not true, or it doesn't have humility to it, and so on. So I've been very amazed by the sort of new media, or embracing the kind of mimetic culture. I think you would call it that. Just around symbols, smaller formats, more viral formats. It's just done extremely well.
Yeah, no, totally. And I wanted to ask you, you're doing so much for Ukraine, and that's amazing. But what if the war ends, and the animal evacs will probably dry up by then, depending on how the war ends, obviously. So then what are you going to do, man? Are you still going to be in Ukraine? Do you feel like your future is here, or are you going to move on to kind of the next place that needs you?
I'm still, quite nomadic, I'd say, as a person. And I've definitely gotten some kind of bug in terms of wanting to help and do good things, I used to work in offshore banking, so I lived between Bahamas and Switzerland when I was in my banking kind of days. And I'd say, I didn't really have a goal of optimizing for anything in particular, but if there was any kind of default, is optimizing for wealth or money, and like just work harder, make more money. And now I'd say I try to really optimize around humanity in terms of the work I do. So that's my North Star. So I think on one side it'll be a ton of reconstruction to do, and I've already enlisted I don't know how many friends and their families and their kids and all that to come once there's victory, and to come after that and to help. But at the same time, like I think I'd look for some kind of hybrid where, and I was just joking about this with Sasha Boole, the singer, and he's like a country singer that's military, does like sarcastic songs, quite amazing. And he tried to pitch me on a piece of land or whatever, like not too far away from him, because he lives out in the woods. And I said, yeah, no, I'm kind of like looking for like a dacha or like a piece of land where I'd put on like, an Airstream, or have a dacha, and then just buy like an amazing banya to put on there. Yeah. But then that's just like the kind of place to come to for winter or something like that, or summer. I don't know, But then I'd probably keep traveling, keep exploring. You know, I still have, I feel like I still have a lot to give.
Yeah. I just feel like I'm worried that when the war ends, not if, it's going to end eventually.
Victory, yes.
Yeah, exactly. It can't be forever. And it's going to be Ukrainian victory. I really hope. I just feel like I'm worried and I'm scared that a lot of these people that are helping Ukraine, they're going to lose their purpose or lose themselves because they're giving their whole life to something. And then if that thing ends, then what do they do?
I don't think so.
Like, for example, I have like friends that are in the military.
Yeah.
And it seems like they hop from like one conflict or from one war zone to the next. And when they become a civilian, they just can't handle it because they feel like they lose their purpose, in life. And they have to do something. I've talked to several military people, and before the war in Ukraine in 2022, when they did the full-scale invasion, they were a civilian and they just couldn't stand being a civilian anymore. And then the war happened. And they're okay, you know what? I will fight for good. I have the skills to do that. I will fight. Yeah, and this is like their purpose. Yeah, I know. I just feel like I'm just worried about like a lot of people will lose their purpose.
I mean, you've interviewed, Aiden and Sean, who I think both were in other conflicts before.
Yeah.
And like I guess that reinforces what you say, but at the same time, they wouldn't have been here if it wasn't for that.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah, I mean, I'm incredibly thankful to people like that have that kind of stamina, in terms of fighting for what's right, and Aiden, especially in his interview with you, spoke to in very like simple, clear English terms. Like I was seeing things on TV and I wasn't doing anything about it, and I wanted to go do something about it, and I went to go do that. Yeah. I mean, that's a very pure statement. And if someone keeps pursuing that, I absolutely can't blame them. I think it's you probably find it in you at some point when you kind of press pause, and maybe for half the guys it's time to pause and settle down here. Maybe the other half to the next one. I don't know. Yeah. It's an individual choice.
Yeah. And also I wanted to ask you as well. So since we're talking about like the end of the war and all of this, what is something you think Ukraine needs to do, after the war is over? Like what is an issue that they're having that you think that it really needs to be improved, once the war ends? Like how can Ukraine be better?
Again, not an expert on this, but I think not an expert, but
disclaimer.
Yeah,
a little bit disclaimer.
No, I think it's important, but I feel like mental health as a field has advanced at different rates in different countries and civilizations, and my impression from what I've heard is that it's not as advanced as it can be here. So even in the US, where you have a large contingent of traumatized soldiers with PTSD, civilians, or not as many civilians, but here you'll have civilians with PTSD, children and everything. I think it's going to be a very like steep ramp up to try and execute mental health correctly. So that would probably be my like largest kind of concern, I think.
Do you know who Michael Colville Anderson is? He's from Denmark.
No, I'm embarrassed now.
Okay, he's from Denmark. He was a guest like on my podcast. One of my first guests.
Okay.
He's one of my friends. He's an urban designer. Yeah. Anyway, so he.
Oh yes, I did see it.
Yeah. He opened a therapy garden.
Okay.
So basically, him and hundreds of volunteers. They came to this area. I believe it was in the Podil area. Yeah. And it just like kind of shrubbery, kind of foresty kind of place.
Does it include ketamine?
What?
Does it include ketamine?
For some of them, maybe. I don't know.
Sure.
Joking. But no. But anyways, so him and the volunteers went over there. They cleaned out the area and they built this therapy garden. And this therapy garden, is for, people that are suffering from PTSD, maybe the soldiers, civilians. Yeah. They can go there and just have a place to relax. They set up areas where there's, where you can like look at the view. They have like this kind of like a waterfall area. It's very like serene and calm, little huts that you can go into and just like be by yourself and just relax. I don't know. I think it's like so nice. And a lot of people don't think that it's important, or, a lot of people, it's like not really too thankful because when you're evacuating people from the front line, when you're like a volunteer medic, these are like very respectable. But when it comes to kind of this mental health, this is also super important that a lot of people overlook.
Crucial.
Yeah, totally. And I mean,
we're only human,
Yeah, exactly.
Like, we can only take so much.
Exactly. And I really respect what Michael does, like in this aspect. But I think it's really, really awesome, these unique ways people find to help. For example, what you're doing, you're evacuating animals. If I were to think about Ukraine and how I can help, I probably wouldn't think about that, but that's also very important.
Yeah, I've realized that sure, you have the war, and you have to defend territory and defend people from further harm, and that's the most important thing. And there's gaps, sort of, or the way that the fabric is kind of interwoven. You have culture, you have animals, you have stories, you have legacy. It all kind of ties together, and it's important to preserve that going forward, because it kind of makes part of that ecosystem again. To have society. Society is not just the people. It's everything. It's the narrative. It's the animals. It's the culture, all coming together. And I think it's worth defending.
Oh, totally, man. Totally. I know. I just feel like Ukraine is my home, and I will do so much for Ukraine, and I'm trying my best in the capacity and like the skills that I have.
Yep.
And no,
I think you're doing great.
Oh, thanks, man. I really appreciate, foreign people like you as well that just come here because you have no ties to Ukraine. You just decided that there's an injustice and I should do something about it, and you took action. It's like super respectable, man. And
Thank you. I appreciate that.
No, and I'm sure you get like this a lot from Ukrainian people. They're asking like, why are you here? Like, and I don't know. I just feel like Ukrainian people are very thankful for people like you.
It's been honestly, I've had one bad experience, and that was my first experience. It was coming across the border, and the Ukrainian border guard said, "Why are you coming to Ukraine if you don't speak Ukrainian?" And I was like, well, this is going to be fun. And I couldn't be more wrong. Everything since then has been absolutely amazing. People have been great. And I think it's very different culturally, right? Because I'm someone who opens with a smile and is, like, hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. And you don't necessarily get that immediately. This is also my cheat code for checkpoints, by the way. When
I'm listening.
When they're like, hey, passport and everything, I'm like, do you speak English? With a big smile.
Yeah.
And it almost like paralyzes them because they're like, oh shit, what do I do? And yeah, that works out quite well. But
I do that naturally because I'm American.
Yeah.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, exactly. And what I've realized is that, even, just being like that, after the second or third time, I get it back. And it's, my experience here has been nothing short of amazing in that regard. You feel that you're at the right place. The world is in a bit of an ugly position. We've polarized discourse, we've polarized politics, we have right versus left, we have good versus evil, hate versus hate. I don't even know what to call it anymore. We have climate change. We've never had this many displaced people. We have food insecurity on the rise again. It's an important time to be doing things that benefit humanity, I think. And for me, what's important is that my friends, the people I grew up with, the team I speak of when you ask me Zurich or Kharkiv, they have children now, and I want them to grow up in a world that's better than now. And I think humanity deserves that.
Yeah. And you know what I was thinking about like the other day? So, not very well said, by the way, man. You have a way with words, you do, Noel. But yeah, I was thinking about these kids that are like, I don't know, 22 years old now. So the war's been going on for like 2.5 years, like almost 3 years now. Before that, there was like probably 2 years of lockdown COVID. So this is like almost 5 years of somebody, say they're, 23 now. Their whole adult life, they've been kind of locked down. It was COVID, and then it's the war, martial law, Komendantski Chas.
It creates generational gaps in education.
Yeah. It's so sad to see too. And especially
Absolutely.
like the ones that are guys, they can't leave the country. The girls, say that, they want to go to Western Europe to continue their studies and, worry about their mental health. They can do that. And they only lost maybe like 2 years from COVID and maybe 1 from the war or something like that, depending on when they left. But the guys, they can't leave. And I know the conscription is like 25 plus, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So if they're like 23, they had like 5 years of just nothing to do. And then they can't leave the country, but they're not obliged to join the army.
It's a tough topic.
Yeah.
You know, like they've tried to pack me in the van before.
Really, you got stopped by Titsuka?
Like, you know, I'm going to a Sport Life as like 9 in the morning on a Sunday. So basically there's nobody else on the street, and the van pulls up, 3 guys jump out. I'm like, oh, I know what this is. And as soon as, you know, say something, I'm like, do you speak English? You know, my usual weapon of mass destruction. And the guy's like, shit.
We thought we had one.
Yeah, I thought we had one. But yeah, it's you know, not to joke about it, but it's an incredibly difficult topic, because you have men that have accepted the draft, you have men that have volunteered, you have women who have volunteered, you have people which are out of the age range that have volunteered. I was out in Kupiansk once. We're looking for directions. This old guy comes out. He asks where I'm from. I say Schweizaria. He's, oh, you know, and then he, you know, tries to speak a bit of German, because he, you know, he left his, I don't know, his like 6,000 euro a month paying job in Germany at the age of like 67 or something. I don't know what, to be back in Kupiansk and defend his house and his homeland and the place he grew up in. It's an incredibly difficult topic. I don't know, you know, like I don't even know if there's a right answer. You know, like I've explored with my friends, you know, for what we do in Switzerland, and we would absolutely step up, all of us, because it's the right thing to do, in our opinions. But yeah, I can't speak for the people here, because I am not the one, as a foreigner, who is under this rule. Right, I'm a free person. I have a Swiss passport. I can travel visa free to I don't know how many countries. It's a privilege that I don't want to take for granted in that regard.
Yeah, this is why it's hard for me to have an opinion on this stuff as well, because I have no dog in this fight. Yeah, I can say I think all men should get conscripted. I'm gonna go on vacation to Italy. Have fun, guys. Yeah. Like, no, it's not right.
Yeah, it's extremely tough.
Yeah, but I'll start with the disclaimer. I know you're not an expert. Yeah. But how do you think the war is going to end?
It has to end in victory. That's my, and this has nothing to do with expertise or anything like that. I think this just comes from me as a global citizen or a human. You know, I feel like when I was on the outside of the war, even before I came here, and I was looking in, I was like, you know, this is like a pivotal kind of point in humanity. Not all of humanity, but the problem is kind of that, yes, if this turns out to be okay, and Ukraine wins, and, you know, we were able to minimize losses from here on out, and everything kind of, given circumstances, goes okay, then it'll be another blip on the kind of historical radar of humanity's progression. But if it doesn't, what does that mean? You know, like how... You know, do we start getting into a lot of populist governments? You know, what happens to the rest of Europe? How does this continue? You know, and this is where I'm, again, not the expert in terms of these kind of shifts, but as a human that just lives on this blue planet, I worry about the future of humanity at a kind of like from a guttural point of view. Like, what happens if Ukraine doesn't win? So that's not even an option in my mind.
Okay, you said Ukraine wins. What does Ukrainian victory look like to you?
I think Ukrainian victory at a very minimum has to be all territory back. It has to be reimbursed for damage. It has to see everybody who's committed war crimes go through trial, be persecuted. Like, that's, I guess, what the minimum looks like.
Yeah. I mean, that would be amazing. But do you really think in our world right now that this is possible?
Well, you asked me a question, and I answered that question in terms of how what I think it should be. Practically, I don't know what that looks like, you know. I think if we're able to, you know, just slow down, like stop the amount of destruction, then that's already something. But it's not okay for there to be some kind of deal where, you know, hey, you've encroached on my lands. I'm just going to keep this and let's call it quits or whatever. You know,
Yeah.
like let's say it's all good. Like I still, that's not okay. Somehow, that doesn't sit right with me.
That's not okay. It's definitely not, man.
Yeah.
It's just I'm worried that Ukraine might not get this complete victory that you're talking about. Because lately, it's before Kursk. Kursk, this is actually helping Ukraine get this complete victory. But before Kursk, people were talking about negotiations.
Yeah.
We're tired of this war. We have other things to focus on now. So many, especially this with the election coming up in the U.S. A lot can shift if, say, Donald Trump gets elected.
Yeah.
Kamala Harris will probably be just another 4 years of Biden administration politics, but Trump can change the game.
I mean, boring presidents are good presidents.
Yeah.
I don't see an issue in that. But the thing I don't want to personally do is normalize that situation.
Yeah.
I don't think that's like, as soon as I normalize it, I'm part of that machine that says it's okay. So if I say, oh, it'll probably come to that. I hope it comes to this, but I think it'll come to that. Then I'm sort of normalizing the situation, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think, as someone that lives on this blue planet, I wouldn't want to normalize a bully, beating up a kid on the schoolyard and then getting away with it.
Yeah. No, I really do hope for complete victory. I would love to go to Crimea, and I heard it's so beautiful out there, and I would love to see.
I still have to go to Carpathians.
Exactly, man.
Gotta get my banya.
Well, I'll tell you what. That's a good place to end it, I guess.
Yeah,
so you
amazing.
can take a train to Haverla right now, Carpathians. But yeah, I'll tell you what. Is there anything that we didn't discuss that we missed that you want to discuss?
Yeah, I'd say. Again, it's an appeal to. There's a lot of large international charities here. And say you take a very large one like Red Cross or United Nations or whatever that acts in this region, and you give them $1, and they'll use part of that dollar to raise more money, right? Because that's how fundraising works. Mm-hmm. It'll take a certain amount of time before that, or even before the money gets here. There's international admin overhead costs. So, places where the money's going, that's not even being spent here. And it by the time it gets here, it's not, it's maybe 3 months later. So a situation like where I'm in Volchansk, on day 2 in the city, 24 hours after it's broken out, there'll never be any of those 2 organizations at that point. Mm-hmm. They'll be further back, and then the help will come, 3 months later or whatever, in terms of the whole kind of flow of money and budgeting and everything. And in that case, I really, if you're a foreign Western viewer and you donate, then I really just want to ask you to look for frontline charities, look for small charities, follow them, interact with them, see if you can help. Maybe you can do a fundraiser in your community. The crazy thing is, even if you raise something like $500 for them, it's going to go such a long way. So, find a charity that really speaks to what your values represent, and please just help them because they absolutely need it.
Well, totally, man. Maybe it's a good time to plug some charitable organizations that you think people should donate to that are reliable, that you can trust.
Yeah, so I actually have a full list on my Instagram because I've created a platform for this. So if people go on my Instagram and they click on the link on the bio, I have about 13, 14 charities recommended.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to name a few off at least, or because we can link them all in the description of this video. But
take it all from there.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll use this time to, if you want to plug your social media or how people can reach you or how they can support you, you can look in this camera and then you can.
Okay, cool.
There you go, bro.
So you can follow me at Noel Tock, NOELTOCK on Instagram. That's where I post quite a bit of content, not just doggy related, but I'm trying to expand in more things, as my experience unfolds. Then you can also follow Nordog Animal Rescue. That's all one word on Instagram. And that's our Frontline Animal Rescue charity. And we'd love your support. Thank you.
All right, great. So I'll just sign off right now. Cool. So thank you all at home for watching another episode of Expats in Ukraine, brought to you by The Gaze, Gaze. I want to thank Noel so much for coming on the show. And if you like this episode, please give it a thumbs up. Comment down below if you want to chat with Noel. I'm sure he'll be reading the comments just like I do.
Yeah, probably.
And and just subscribe to the channel if you want to see more episodes just like this one. But what I like to do at the end of each episode, I like to shake the hand of the guest.
I have a small gift for you.
Oh,
Yeah. So we got some patches for you.
Oh my gosh, Noel.
No.
Yeah. Oh,
Here you go.
oh my gosh, thank you so much, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah.